Salmon. I live here in Bournemouth with my wife and our 2 children. I'm a counsellor for the Moordown ward, as is my wife, and I've worked in the NHS for the last 8 years now. I was working for the South West Ambulance Service at the height of the pandemic as the hub manager at St Leonard's Hospital, and it was my experiences then that made me realise actually we really need people like me in politics. All that needed to happen during the pandemic was for our politicians to follow the clinical advice and keep their bloody hands out of the till, and they couldn't even manage out. Billions of pounds lost to COVID fraud. We had a situation where millions of pounds were spent on PPE that either didn't exist or didn't work, and the tender process seemed to be trying to bump into Matt Hancock down the pub when he's not trying to seduce his employees. It's disgusting, the state of politics in this country. We have been here before though. I remember in 1997 listening to all the Labour pledges, how Tony Blair would take marketisation out of our public services and sort them out, stop hitting doctor against doctor, nurse against nurse. And instead, when Labour came into power, we saw the solidification of that purchaser-provider split in the NHS with foundation trusts. We saw the same thing in education with academy schools. We saw things like PFI, which have hobbled our public services for generations. We cannot trust the promises from Labour and the Tories because they are beholden to the system of legalised corruption and bribery that exists in our country because of our laws around lobbying and political donations. Frank Hesketh does not give millions of pounds to the Conservative Party because he thinks Rishi Sunak is a snappy dragster. He makes those donations because he knows he will get a return on that investment tenfold in how his company can profit from the NHS. Similarly, Labour's incoming Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, he isn't being given tens of thousands of pounds, hundreds of thousands of pounds, I think, in fact, by people linked to private healthcare because they really like the cut of his jib. They are donating that money because they know that he will not take their noses out of the trough. And if anything, if you listen to the actual reforms he's intending for greater involvement of the private sector, he will be widening that trough. It is corruption. What's on the ballot this election is a really clear binary choice. It's between the traditional parties that are dominated by that literal, it happens in broad daylight, that legal corruption that happens with those massive donations, and then candidates like myself and the other independents who aren't funded like that. If you want to know what anybody on this stage will do, follow the money. All of those glossy promises in election leaflets and all of that only last until election day. Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. And that is how politics works in this country at the moment, and that is why our country is so broken. That is the fundamental problem we have to address. And that is why you will see again and again, when people like myself, people like the wonderful Green Council we've got in this ward, Sarah, stand for election, we get in and we make a real difference. And I cannot wait to do that as Bournemouth East's next MP. Thank you very much.